Welcome to another episode of Un-Trainable, the only interracial fitness podcast.
Jesus, I don't see color, mate. Yeah, welcome back, guys. We're going straight in today. We're not messing around. We're going to talk about something me and Knuckles know next to nothing about. Next to nothing about. And we're going to try and come off as experts on the topic.
Isn't that
Go on.
what we do on every episode anyway?
Yeah, I know, but it's good to admit it every now and again. I'm going to start with a slightly hypothetical question. If you know the answer, you can answer. Do you know why Hyrox is called Hyrox?
Damn, now I feel like I've come underprepared for an exam.
Mm,
I do
I
not know
know.
why Hyrox is called Hyrox. I'm guessing the HY is something to do with hybrid.
Yeah, so it's two words. They've kind of shoved them together.
Hybrid
Um,
what?
yeah, hybrid what? That's the question. Hybrid rock star.
Hybrid rockstar.
And I think that's everything you need to know about it, really. Should we end the podcast?
Yeah, guys, thanks for tuning
It's
in.
the word.
And okay, so we're both
It's the
wrong, by
worst
the way.
thing. Go on.
So the name Hyrox is derived from the combination of hydro and cross, the sports blend of running, functional fitness exercises, hydro representing the running element, and cross the functional workout stations. Tom, you love a functional workout station, don't you?
Oh, every station I do is functional. I make sure of it. Are you sure? Mate, I did a Google search. I found some meta-analyses that said that it was hybrid rock star, and I've seen other people talk about it too. And I was so ready to say it's the worst thing I've ever heard in my life, and therefore I hate the whole sport. Is that right? You've
But
dismantled my opinion.
I have, but I was going to say, is it more that you hated the sport before and then
No, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. That's the thing. I think like I probably want to on some level, and everything I say in this episode is going to make it really seem like I hate it, but I don't. I love all fitness. That's my like base, the mask I wear. I love all fitness. Do you like CrossFit, Tom? I love all fitness. I love it all the same. Yeah, guys, we're going to talk about Hyrox, if you haven't guessed. Yeah, as people who are kind of just learning about what it is, not just learning about what it is, it's obviously been around for a little while now. It's extremely bloody popular. Yeah, we're going to try and do a little bit of a deep dive into why it exists. Should it exist? Maybe. No. But also, how do you train from it? Especially since we've got Dr. Knuckles here, S&C, PhD, to tell us exactly how to train for almost any sport in the world. Yeah, and we'll get into
non-functional
some other bits,
sport?
I'm sure. We'll go off on various tangents, and one of us will try and keep the other on the straight and narrow. What is Hyrox, Knuckles? Have you Googled the events by any chance?
I have. I'm just pulling it up now. Right. So you've got, where is this?
It's a fitness race. Let's start with that. It's a fitness race.
Hold on. We can edit these bits out.
Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is? It's an obstacle course race, isn't it?
Yeah, because actually, you know what? Someone did
Which
ask
is,
me if, because you'd done Tough Mudder, someone
mhm,
assumed that was what Hyrox was. And they said, hasn't Tom done Hyrox before?
yeah.
And I said,
So I can't, I love doing Tough Mudder. It's great fun. I wouldn't necessarily say it was a sport itself, but it's an obstacle course race, which is a sport. So I can't shit on Hyrox too much. I'll be labeled a hypocrite.
but Tough Mudder, again, that's my thing. Like, Tough Mudder it's an event.
It's just a bit of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's how I look at Hyrox. I look at Hyrox as an event. If you want to call it a sport, call it a sport, but probably need to Google the definition of sport. But I'd assume in sport there's like a tactical element to it. Would the pacing for a Hyrox count as a tactical element?
definitely. It's a sport.
Yeah,
I'm going 100%.
it's a
It's
sport.
physical. It's got it's got rules and regulations that are the same every time. They have referees or judges or whatever they call them. Winners, losers.
Do they have
Definitely a
movement
sport.
standards?
I think they do have movement standards. I
Okay.
think I've seen some criticism the upholding of the movement standards, but it's the same in CrossFit, isn't it? Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's a
so
fitness
for,
race.
for
We've established that. Tell us the stations.
So it starts with a kilometer run. So basically, what happens is you've got eight what they call functional stations, which we'll talk about later. Between each station, you've got 1 kilometer run. So you start with a run, then you've got 1,000 meter ski, then you run again. You've got a sled push, which is 50 meters. Then you've got to run again, and then you've got a 50-meter sled pull. You got to run, a burpee broad jump for 80 meters, run again, 1,000-meter row, run again, farmer carries for 200 meters, run again, 100 meters of lunges, run again, and then you've got 100 wall balls to finish.
So straight away, the skeptic in me is screaming to be let out and say, that's a CrossFit WOD. it's like a hero WOD, isn't it? It's like a special one, a long one that you do on a Saturday, maybe with a partner,
I think that's
and you
what that is almost the marketing that they fell back on, is this idea that it's like,
it's a chipper.
yeah, like the CrossFit was the whole thing of a fitness event to try and find what they defined as the fittest in the world. And this is now basically another attempt at doing that without a lot of the technical elements that people doing CrossFit would have to master. For example, say the clean and jerks, even things like they have the heavy 1RM lifts and things like that, the gymnastics elements of it. So this is almost trying to do what CrossFit has been doing without the technically challenging elements.
Yeah, yeah, without the technically challenging elements and with exactly none of the variety of CrossFit, because I think one of the strengths and weaknesses of CrossFit is its extreme variety, and I love that. I personally don't think I'd be able to tolerate training with quite that much variety myself. And then Hyrox is like straight up the opposite. There is none. It is the same event every single time, but at the same time, they're also incredibly similar. Hello guys, thank you for joining us on Un-Trainable. Knuckles and I have very much enjoyed bringing you this content over the past couple of months, and what we'd love even more is to watch the show grow. If you have been enjoying it and you want to help us out in that, the absolute best thing that you can do for us is take a screenshot of the episode, whether it's on Spotify or YouTube, and post it to your story on your socials. Thanks in advance. So I googled and Google really lied to me once today. So I googled, why does it exist? I don't know what I was expecting, but it just told me that it was founded by a couple of German blokes in Hamburg in 2017 with the goal of creating a sport that was accessible to people of all fitness levels. And I can see what they've done. They've removed the skillful elements of CrossFit, although there's a little bit, like, although I don't think wall balls and things like that are technically difficult. You are essentially doing a squat and then throwing a ball at a wall. It's not, someone who can't move that well wouldn't be able to do a wall ball. And I've seen plenty of people get like smacked in the chops by a, by a medicine ball. But I don't know if it's accessible.
It's what I think their definition of accessible is it involves elements that aren't technically challenging or don't require much of a skill base.
Yeah, but you can't just change the definition of words. I'm not sure that's what they've done. But
That's what gets
accessible's
done.
already got a meaning. It
Well,
means
that's what
people
gets
can
done, isn't
access it. Yeah,
it?
it is what gets done. Absolutely.
Yeah, because
Probably do it ourselves.
when they say accessible, they're probably saying more accessible in relation to or in comparison to, and then the one they're going to refer to will be CrossFit.
Yeah.
But then
But
again,
CrossFit is infinitely scalable.
exactly, I was going to say I'd argue that CrossFit is more accessible because when they talk about scalability in CrossFit, is they're actually scaling the workout based on the individual's capabilities, whereas
Yeah.
here, I think it's, what was it you said? Two categories. You have open and professional.
So you can run a Hyrox race on your own, and you can go into the at the open level, which is just like standard Gen Pop. And I think the weights are like the weights are the weights, let's say. Then you can step up to a pro version, which you do if you were very fit, very strong, good at Hyrox, wanted to challenge yourself a bit more. I think the only thing that gets scaled there is the weights increase a little bit. Like it's still 8 kilometers of running total. The stations are all the same. I don't think the distances change, but again, like we said at the start, never done one, probably never will. Just talk about it on a podcast and
Forget
then
about it.
leave it there. Forget about it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But also then you can sign up as a pair, so you can do doubles. You'd still end up running 8 kilometers in that scenario, but you'd split the work at the functional stations. Then you can also sign up as a quad, which I believe is called relay, and that splits it up even further. Then I believe you are on your own, but you do two stations and two runs, and then the next guy goes, and there's four of you, so it's a quarter of the work essentially. So there's a little bit of like scaling in that regard, but that to me doesn't scream accessibility. I think it's important to note that there are lots and lots and lots of sports in the world, and most of them are very, very accessible. You don't need much equipment to play, let's say, football or, I mean, tennis. I suppose tennis, you need a membership. The other thing that kind of slapped me in the face was I was looking at the cost of entering one, not to enter one, by the way, just so I could have a pop on here. And it's not cheap. Like to enter one, it's like 150 quid, I think. And further, it's so goddamn popular, you'd be lucky to get a ticket. Like I know there's one coming to Cardiff, I think this summer, so they're going to use the Millennium Stadium, which admittedly sounds sick. And if anything was going to get me to do a Hyrox, it would be running out into the Millennium Stadium and feeling like a rugby player for once in my life. But yeah, I'm very, very confident that these tickets are going to go on sale and they're going to disappear. Yeah. So again, I'm not sure that's accessibility.
Yeah, like we already know, I think 2 or 3 people in Cardiff who signed up for it.
Oh yeah.
But what is it? What is Hyrox? What does it mean for the fitness industry?
I don't know. I'm in a few different minds. Like, obviously, I think it's a positive. Like, we need to weigh up our negativity somehow. That's nothing to do with High Rocks. That's just me and Knuckles being grumpy old bastards. It's definitely a positive thing. Like, if it attracts people into the industry, if it attracts people towards doing fitness, like, oh, that looks cool. Look at everyone on my Instagram feed doing these sick things. I'm gonna start training. That's really, really cool. So I think it's a good thing if it acts as a magnet towards activity. The other side of me, which is much, much larger in general, says it just proves once again that the fitness industry is an absolute sucker for a trend. And like trends are common throughout human culture. Of course they are. They're massive. But fitness seems to amplify trends to infinity, and it gets a little bit tiresome when you're looking at it from the inside. Obviously, we mentioned CrossFit earlier. That was one. But again, positive. It's great. It's great that it attracted so many people into fitness. It's great that it made so many people fit and strong and active. Yeah, there's a part of me that says, why can't people do that anyway?
See, that's my thing about any fad or trend or things like that. If it's also the same analogy I use with any training modality and things like that, which is that if it gets people moving, I'm all for it. I might
Mm,
criticize how efficient it is or some of the principles behind it and things like that. But at the end of the day, if it gets people moving, that's a good thing. That's what we want. That's what we want in this industry.
yeah,
So that way, I quite like that suddenly because it's grown in popularity. And as much as we still can't seem to wrap our head around what they mean when they say accessible, it has caught the attention of a large demographic of people we know who've never even considered stepping into say a CrossFit gym. Suddenly they've seen Hyrox and they're signing up for the Hyrox events that are coming to Cardiff and other people as well. So it has sparked some interest or grown the popularity of the fitness space, which I like, which I don't mind. I think my issue with it is what comes with every trend that pops up is supposed experts. That's what follows any trend that starts. And then, so the new bit is the High Rocks coach.
yes, we love them. God bless them. It's just business, right? Yeah, let's talk about that in a sec. Yeah, I wanted to jump back a tiny bit because you mentioned being critical of it, and I wanted to sort of caveat it, and I know you'll be on the same page here. We criticize everything, strength and conditioning and fitness and training. It is a science. It doesn't matter what you want to think about it. It is a science. That's what we're applying, and that's part of science is being critical. We're also critical of other coaches who are doing exactly the same thing as us. We're also critical of ourselves. So it's not that we're being nasty to High Rocks because it's the new kid. It's just that it falls within our scope of practice. Like this is training, it is fitness. So if someone enters that realm and starts doing stuff that we don't necessarily agree with, I think it's really important to identify that. Like, yeah, we can praise the stuff that goes well. Like in terms of business, my God, they're doing something right. I wish I could capture a bit of that. But yeah, same page.
Yeah, for sure. I think it brings us back to what we talked about in episode 1, which now seems ages away, where we discussed how far our coaching practices come from where we first started and how we've moved away from so many of the beliefs we had when we got into the industry. And that's because we're constantly assessing and reevaluating what we do, the way we do things, whether it's program prescription, coaching, things like that. And because research keeps evolving, our practice evolves with it, which is how it should be. So you should always constantly keep criticizing your own practice and just adopt a critical approach or critical thinking approach to everything that you do. Even when you're reading literature, be a little more critical. I don't know if you saw my Instagram today. I posted a little blog article that Greg Lehman had written.
I liked it.
It,
Didn't read it.
but it's basically he's talking about. I love the title of it was is movement optimism for movement morons, and we did an episode where we were talking about technique and injury and load and adaptability, and he's not disagreeing with any of it, but he's saying the next step is for practitioners or coaches who preach movement optimism to now criticize movement optimism and almost question it a little bit more and try to find if there are scenarios
Yeah.
where it doesn't apply.
Or has it gone too far? Because of course it can go in one direction.
Yeah. And he says question it, criticize it, and make the philosophy better, which is what we should be doing. That's how the practice grows.
Yeah. Do you want to like 20 seconds sum up what movement optimism is? Because I think that's pretty niche. Not many people know what that is.
Hold on. Let me read what exactly what he wrote. I think it's really well done. So he
Yeah.
basically says one large component of movement optimism is that we don't worry about deviations from neutral or end range of motion positions. So what is most important is load management. If we get the dosage correct and help people create a healthy ecosystem that is sleep, optimism, healthy beliefs, social connection, they are able to thrive and adapt.
Yeah.
Just brilliantly put.
It's very good. I think it flies in the face of, I mean, probably most of the industry at the moment, movement optimism, that is, but definitely over the past 10 years, there's been this kind of shift into you must move this way. And it's PTs, physios, chiros that are all like, no, you must move in a certain way. And there's been this huge, like, I call it spine hygiene sort of movement. Scott University's been going on about it for years and years. You've got Stuart McGill in the background. When you're lifting weights, you must move in this certain way and you must do corrective exercises and things like that. Movement optimism is. Did I say 20 seconds? Has it
Yeah.
been 20 seconds
I was
yet?
going to say
Let's
kind
get
of
off
we're
this. We're
kind
talking
of
about
like
Hyrox, for the love
deviating.
of God.
Yeah.
So I said at the start, we'll go off on a tangent. I said the other person needs to rein the other one in.
Which I
You've
just
done
did.
nothing.
You basically
You were too
engaged in a
slow.
minute
You were
long
too slow.
monologue.
We've yeah, that's the whole reason I started this thing. We just a yap. Where on earth were we? I know where we were heading.
So we were heading to
It was,
what follows trends is self-proclaimed experts.
yeah, we were on what does it mean for the industry? And I was going to say, I would like to believe that it proves that people want more than just vanity, which is kind of like a huge part of my ethos as a coach is to lean away from like the vanity side of training. I know it's the reason most people get into lifting weights and running, whatever, is to lose a bit of weight and make this bit look better. And for me, it was put on a bit more muscle. But I still, at the point where I'm at in my career, I don't really want to talk about that kind of stuff. And Hyrox is a performance sport, right? So I want to say it proves that people want more of that stuff, but it's still a huge element of vanity, isn't there? Every guy's doing it with their top off. Everyone there is filming the entire thing. They brought mum along or auntie along or sister along to film the whole goddamn thing, and they'll cut it up and it'll go on Instagram, and that's all great, but it is super vain. There's lots of memes, isn't there? Maybe we'll flash up a couple of memes of what happens when you tell a Hyrox athlete they have to wear a t-shirt for the workout. It's so funny. I'm really into memes at the moment.
The listener will notice that I have made no comments about training with the top off, and I will not make any
Yeah.
comments about that.
Nate, how hot is it in your gym? You don't have aircon, do you?
I don't have the aircon. I have got a little fan, but it's about 26 degrees in the morning, or 34 degrees by afternoon. But when I
Yeah,
train, it's about like 26 degrees.
yeah. It was, so I ran last night. So the sun was kind of low, very low. It was still 14, 15 degrees. I was boiling, absolutely boiling. It's way too hot to run in. I want 5 degrees back. I don't know how you do it, mate. If you trained in a t-shirt, that'd be the end of you, I think.
You know the best part? 7 years in Cardiff. I don't think I ever sweat during a workout, ever.
Oh, you used to wear thermal layers in the summer. We were like, what are you doing? But yeah, different strokes,
We're
isn't
deviating.
it? Hey, it's my right as a British person to talk about the
The
weather at any given time,
weather.
including on podcasts about totally separate topic. Anyway, I can tell you are absolutely desperate to talk about the rise of the Hyrox coach. So why don't you get into that, mate?
I was going to ask you, how does one train for a Hyrox?
That's not my question. The rise of the Hyrox coach.
I guess the question I want to ask is, do you need a Hyrox coach?
Well, I did a post on this recently. So if you haven't seen it, guys, my opinion is no. Hyrox is a sport, and you need a coach who will prepare you for the sport. I don't think that you need a specific coach for a specific sport when it comes to training, the strength and the fitness side of things. You need a strength and conditioning coach. There's one over there, look. But there's been a huge rise, obviously, like a massive trend in the industry. People want to capitalize. Like I dropped a little hint earlier, it is business at the end of the day, and people always want a bigger slice. So when something like this comes around, then yeah, of course there's going to be higher ups coaches. But yeah, I think it's just really, really important to identify the fact that niching down as a higher ups coach is a marketing tactic. It is absolutely nothing more. I don't think Hyrox has been around long enough for people to be like hyper passionate about it. Like, oh, that's all I want to do. I just want to work with Hyrox athletes. No, it's a business move. Yeah,
I think the argument that most people will probably throw out is, say, an S&C coach is there to prepare you to perform and cope with the demands of your sport. And then the sport has a sport coach. But when we're talking about that in all other sports settings, we're talking about where there is element to it. There's a skill-based
yeah.
element, and the whole marketing premise of Hyrox with that there are no technically demanding element. So there's no element that's highly skill dependent. So then my question is, do you need a sport coach?
No, that's a really good point, and I think you could. I could think you absolutely could have a Hyrox coach who was more like a football coach. There's a running element. So, if you had a Hyrox coach who was like highly skilled in that area and you wanted to be an elite Hyrox athlete, then perhaps running was something that you could work on technically with them. And, of course, there's tactics and pacing and things like that you can bring into a race. That's not, I don't think that's what these guys are doing. Of course, I think that's probably part of the service they provide is taking an athlete through technique on certain different things. But I think it is way more on the preparation side of things in terms of fitness.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen at the very least.
The only thing I can think of from a sport specific coach for High Rocks would be just pacing strategies. That's all. But
Yeah,
then my counterpoint would be that if you've done enough running to prepare for the event and done enough of the actual background work, you'll understand yourself the pace to set when you go into the event. So I don't know if you really need that. And if you're someone who's completely
yeah,
new to it and who's doing it recreationally for fun, are you looking for pacing advice? Or are you just going out there to have fun?
yeah, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you and I will always align on the fact that in training for a sport, this will be the 25th time we've said this in, episode whatever this is. You need to train. Oh, this thing. You need to train in the gym, relevant physical qualities, and then you need some practice at your sport. And again, that's not what I'm seeing from, the 1,000 Hyrox coaches that I've seen up until now on Instagram. What I've seen is, have you tried this Hyrox workout? It's run a kilometer. It's then you ski a kilometer. Then you do 100 wall balls. And like
So they're basically
that, I
pitching the sport
suppose,
as the,
practice of
yeah,
the sport.
yeah.
It's really difficult to think about, isn't it? I keep saying this to people because the sport does look like training quite a lot. It's the same as CrossFit. It looks like training. People think that training for the sport is just the sport, just doing the sport over and over again. But it isn't. It's not the same thing. Like training for that sport, of course, you'll be using some of the same tools. Like there'll be sleds, there'll be a wall ball, but there'll also be a barbell and there'll be machines. And those are the things that will help you develop the physical quality of strength. And then probably a lot of your conditioning work will be running, depending on how much running you can get into your week, and if you need some off-feet stuff as well to train your fitness, of course. But then there'll be power elements as well, and
But
you don't get that stuff.
that's what they don't see when it comes to CrossFit, isn't it? Like when they see the CrossFit games and things like that, like they're seeing WODs being done. That is the test of fitness and like individual elements. And usually all they see on CrossFit athletes' social media are videos of them doing these little WODs. but that's them practicing the sport specific element, which are those WODs.
Yeah.
What you don't see is that they're doing the base work, they're doing strength work, they're doing power work, doing interval based work, they're doing their aerobic based work, and then they're practicing more of their sport with the WODs and the other workouts that they
Yeah.
have.
There's structured programming in the
Yeah,
background. That's what you're saying. It's like on Instagram, you see the WODs. On Instagram, you see the Hyrox
yeah.
events. The training for those things doesn't quite look like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it comes back to what we
Yeah.
always talk about, which is the thing that you're in the gym to develop the qualities, the general qualities that underpin performance. And then you get better at your sport by doing more of the actual sport.
Yeah. Because training those qualities will make you better at the sport.
Exactly.
That we should just pinpoint that. Because getting stronger will make you a better runner. It will make you more efficient. Getting stronger will make that 6 kilo wall ball and doing a billion wall balls, it will make it take less effort. It'll make it take less out of you if you get stronger.
Yeah, and all you need to do is for the transfer of those improved physiological qualities, for them to transfer to your sport, you do more of your sport. It's literally that simple. So even if you're, say, if you're training for Hyrox and then 3 days a week you're doing like an actual strength and conditioning program, and then even maybe once a week, or let's say we want to practice the sport elements a little bit more and get used to things on the ergs and develop that endurance, local muscular endurance for wall balls and things like that. Even 2 days a week, if you follow a general strength and conditioning program, and 2 other days in the week, you just practice the actual sport, you will get better. You don't have to just be doing Hyrox to get better at Hyrox.
Totally. Point made.
Is that it?
We've run out of things to say.
Is that our shortest thing yet?
Yeah. Do you know what? I've totally exhausted things that I know about Hyrox now. I enjoyed you breaking down the week a little bit there. How would someone train for Hyrox, like literally in the space of a week? Can we kind of break it down a little bit? What actually helps? Because it's all very well saying like, "Oh, get stronger because it'll help with this and this and this." If I don't know if you've ever had a client train for Hyrox, but hopefully after this episode you'll see an influx. What would it look like? What would your like instincts tell you to go week one? Let's say they can train 5 times.
So I am actually working with a client who's with the run club I consult for, and he's doing his first pro Hyrox event. And I'll tell you what we've changed. So before he's run a couple of marathons, and then post the marathons, he said he's basically doing 3 Hyrox events this year and all in the pro division. So what we've
Cool.
changed in his training based on his move from marathon running to the Hyrox is absolutely nothing. From a strength perspective,
Wow,
we have
wow,
changed.
coach.
Now you see why they pay me the big bucks.
Yeah, 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 yeah. He's
And
bold.
oh, very.
Let's see if it pays off.
So the approach has been very simple. So if you break down like the stations which we mentioned earlier, everything involves an element of strength and power, whether it's low body strength, upper body strength for the pulling, for your jumping, that's obviously your power output, for your wall balls, for your lunges, there's a little bit of strength, there's a little bit of that local muscular endurance. And then you've got the ergs, where if you're stronger, you are going to be good on the ergs, you'll have a stronger pull on the row and things like that. And the more you practice the ergs, you'll be more efficient. So, from a strength perspective, nothing changed from his marathon running program is we still wanted to stay strong. We still wanted to develop those qualities of power output. We still wanted that stretch shortening cycle efficiency. And there is a large running element in Hyrox, so nothing changed. His run coach handles his conditioning part. So the only thing that changed in terms of his running program was to make him run at least once a week at the kind of pace they'd be looking for him to maintain between stations. And overall, what we did was to reduce the volume of work that he was doing in terms of running, because his strength stuff was already at minimal dose. We just reduced the volume of work that he's doing in terms of running and swap that volume out to actually practice Hyrox elements. So I've mentioned things like muscular endurance in the lunges, which is 100 meters, especially the muscular endurance part comes in the 100 wall balls. And in previous episodes, we've mentioned that you can build muscular endurance by doing the specific task that you want to get that muscular endurance in. So just practicing the wall balls more, just get more efficient and better at that. So reduce volume of running, strength workers stay the same, and then just practicing individual Hyrox elements to get more competent in them.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a few coaches involved there. If you had full control, would you have increased his exposure to strength work? Would you have dropped some of the running and replaced it by more strength training? Or has he
No,
got enough with that minimal dose?
yeah,
He's got
I'd
enough.
I'd rather have him taking off that minimal dose because I'm always stuck on the fact that strength work in terms of S&C is there to supplement your sport, not to take over it or take away from it. So
Yeah.
if I can still get you better and have minimal amounts of fatigue, that's what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah. Makes sense. You might have said this, sorry. Did his overall running volume come down a little bit, or has he just replaced some of it with a higher pace?
No, so his overall running volume has also come down, and then the
Yeah.
running strategy for a couple of his runs has changed to maintain a quicker pace that they would want him keeping in his high rocks run. But again, if you don't have
Yeah.
a running coach, don't stress over that. Just practice the running element by doing more running.
Yeah, I personally, from training for marathons, I'd personally bring it quite a long way down. It's obviously a lot less running,
Yeah.
a much higher pace. So yeah, do you know how many times does he run in a week?
So he was in the build up to it. So when we were about 6 weeks out, 6 to 7 weeks out, he had 3 runs a week and 2 lifting sessions. Well, actually, 3 lifting sessions a week, but that's because I split his lowers into 2 sessions. Basically, what he would do was he'd be doing like one set for an exercise in one session. So, like one heavy set, so bare minimal volume, and just to keep the sessions short and as accumulating as little fatigue as possible, I even split that his minimal volume into 2 sessions. So he was doing 2 lifting sessions. And then he's now 2 weeks out, and his lifting is 2 sessions, but it's mostly just more practicing the Hyrox elements. So he has right now, I think he's on one power clean, one set of power cleans, and one set of heavy deadlifts. And that's his actual strength work. And then he practices the Hyrox elements. So that's on 2 days. He's got one day of actual Hyrox, and then he's got one track run and one easy run.
There you go, guys. Full case study. What's his diet? No, I'm joking. Let's not. Is he going to listen to this?
I don't know. I don't know. If he does well, I'll
Yeah.
make sure he listens. If he doesn't, I'll make sure we don't talk about it ever again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just tell him it's not him, it's someone else.
But that's the thing. Like, we're at the point now where the focus is more on maintaining the qualities we've developed and almost dissipating the fatigue we've accumulated leading up to this point, just so we have him going into race day, like feeling fresh.
Yeah. That was interesting. I could see some people potentially tuning out of that particular monologue. I'm not saying you're boring. Like, I found it interesting, but it's completely a different approach to what I've personally seen on Instagram. And I know Instagram isn't a full picture. People post snippets and stuff like that, but it gives you a pretty good idea, I think, of what people are up to in the background. It's totally different to how I think people are training for High Rocks. I think people are doing like, High Rock style workouts, I think is the phrase I see quite a lot. Like, check out my Hyrox style workout. Oh God, I'd rather not. But yeah, should we should we leave it there?
Yeah, I think we leave it on that note. So at least some of the listeners have a rough idea that if they are entering High Rocks competition, training for it is very simple.
Yeah. So obviously, like what I'd love there, like at the start of the episode, we came out and said we don't know much about this, but you're already coaching someone in what I would agree with as the right approach for a High Rocks, which I think proves you don't need a specific coach. However, we don't know that much about it. We know a bit, enough to fill 45 minutes of absolute blather. Hopefully, some people who watch this will know a little bit more. And what I'd love is for them to criticize us a little bit. We said in the middle of that episode, we're always doing it. Someone do it to us, for God's sake. What did we get wrong? Because maybe we did get something wrong.
Yeah. And I'll just add
Yeah,
to that one bit where you said we don't know much about it. But that's the criticism I get a lot with some of the S&C work that I do is that, but you don't play that sport. I work in
doesn't
multiple
matter.
sports. I work in multiple sports: basketball, football, tennis, rugby, jiu-jitsu, combat sport, other combat sport. And the thing is, like rugby, for example, I still don't understand rugby. I don't get the rules. I don't understand a lot of stuff that's happening when I watch a match, which is why Tom's never, when I lived 7 years, when I lived in Cardiff, Tom never took me for one Wales game because I'd probably annoy him asking him what's going on. But we understand the qualities that underpin performance in the sport, even though we don't understand necessarily the rules of the sport or how the sport is played. But all sport has specific elements to it. And then we understand the qualities that underpin these elements, which then enables us to program to develop these qualities and then get better at the sport.
Yeah, yeah, because strength and conditioning has principles and that they're the same across the board.
Fun.
Fun, so much fun. Thank you very much for tuning in, you legends. Legend.
Hit that.
There's at least one of you. Yeah. Yeah, see you on the next one. Good chat, Knuckles.
Good chat.